5 threats that I'm going to talk about tonight. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that I shared with you some of our upcoming events that we have. There's always something next that you can get plugged into. With Medicare open enrollment right around the corner, we do have a couple of Medicare events. Anybody here who's over the age 65, with Medicare, if you have Medicare questions, if you're 64, it works perfect too. I know Scott is in the back here. Scott Kirshner, here he is, the good-looking guy in the Walleyes jersey. So Scott is our health insurance expert and the Medicare specialist. If you have questions on Medicare, you want to come out and get an hour presentation, we do have an event October 11th and 13th at Red Lobster. It seems like it's the seafood lover and a lot of people. It's a packed event. If for some reason it's overbooked, what he'll do is he'll share with you some future dates, because I know as of now, the last I saw were about 100 people were coming to Red Lobster, and I'm sure it's to learn Medicare for you, Scott. So it's great information. If you're before the age of 65 and you want to learn about affordable health care, maybe you're going to retire at 62, you know, that's also something that Scott and I can help a lot with too, and help with the transition. Again, back to my love and passion, which is hooves, I want to share that November 12th, so the day after Carter's birthday and Veterans Day, we have our annual 5th chili cook-off. That is a rowdy, foot-stomping, fun night. We're looking to have a live band. We've got a great amount of silent auction items, and it's all to raise money to save our local vets. We rented out Bunker Bar down on Airport Highway, and we're looking right now for people who want to come out to that event. 100% of the proceeds from that event go to support veterans and the Hooves Retreat program. So if you can save the date, November 12th, we'd love to have you come out and say hello to some of our vets. The Baby Boomer Basic class, so next door at the Bowling Green State University, the BGSU Levis Commons campus, so right next door, our next university class is on November 15th and November 16th. How many here have been to one of our university classes? Okay. So some, not a ton. If you haven't been to the university class, the Baby Boomers Basics is we're going to be covering the nuts and bolts of, you know, how to prepare for and transition into retirement time. I know some of you are already retired, and some of you say, hey, Nolan, I know you've got it, and that's good too. But to me, it's like watching a movie. It never hurts to watch a movie once or twice. There can always be things that you pick up just by like coming to these type of an event. So if you wanted to come out to that, the Baby Boomer Basics November 15th and 16th would be great. We love introductions. We'll talk a little bit about introductions later, but we love meeting great people. And there's been so many fantastic people that have made a lot of introductions to us that goes a long way. If you know somebody that just maybe lost their job, somebody who's transitioning into retirement time, maybe somebody who lost a spouse, it's very common that, you know, one spouse or the other takes care of the finances. And if somebody lost a spouse, they may not know where to turn. Bring them out with you. Bring them to our Baby Boomer Basics class. It's low-key, low-pressure, good education, and good content. And last but not least, it's Santa Claus is coming back to town. So our Christmas party is December 6th. We'll have our Christmas party December 6th. So if you want to save the date for our children's holiday party, come on out. If you don't have kids or grandkids, come on out and have a great time with us. Those are our upcoming events. Any one of these events you want to register for, you can let us know. Any one of our team members can get you registered, and or if you go to our website, you can register online for any one of our upcoming events. So during my talk, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes and I'm going to talk about the 5 threats and opportunities facing today's retirees and really how to prepare for the economy ahead. If we look at it, you know, there's kind of 5 major threats, I think, right now that most investors are paying careful attention to. First and foremost is inflation. You know, you have record high inflation numbers. The next is what's going on with the market and the market crash, rising interest rates, healthcare costs, and taxes. Just as a reminder, this information, all of this stuff, even tonight's presentation, is going to be available on our YouTube channel. So if you want to access any of the information, usually at most of my presentations I tell you to put your phone away. But if you want to take your phone out and you want to click and go to YouTube, if you get to YouTube, just type in America's Retirement Headquarters, you can click the subscribe button, and then that way you'll have easy access to our learning library each and every week. So tonight I'm going to touch just briefly on inflation, but we have a 22-minute discussion on this where we dive deep into inflation. We have a topic that we just recorded. It's how to invest in a bear market. I'm going to touch briefly on this topic because I only have a window of time that they give me the stage for, but if you wanted to learn more, you could go inside of there and learn more within the learning library. So with inflation, what the number is when we look at inflation, it's a percentage of which a chosen basket of goods and services in the United States, it increases in price over a year. Inflation is one of the metrics that the U.S. Federal Reserve uses to gauge the health of the economy. And since 2012, the Federal Reserve has targeted a 2% inflation factor is what their target goal has been. And they make monetary policy changes to try to keep it within the guidelines. You know, a notable time for inflation was back in the early 1980s. And during that time frame, inflation hit a high of 14.93%, which caused the Federal Reserve, led by Paul at that time, to take dramatic actions. So what we see today is in August, the inflation factor was 8.26%. And it was 5.25% 1 year ago. So inflation has dramatically gone up. I remember my wife and I, when we bought our first house, it was over on Boyles Avenue, Jackson, Pennsylvania area. And when we had bought our first house, I think our mortgage rate at that point was 6.75% interest. And I kind of remember as a young kid high-fiving her at closing because I had heard about my parents talk about the 12 and 14% mortgage rates. Our third house is where we live at in Waterville today. We've been in our third house since really Carter has been born. And our third house, we refied and interest rates went down. And we refied at a 3% interest rate is what we locked in. And interest rates actually went down even lower. They went down to 2.5%, and I felt like I got cheated, right? Because rates went down so low. But now you've seen the trend go in the opposite direction. You know, you have mortgage rates back up to that 6.75% range, and they change in a big hurry. One other cool thing I'll tell you about that I'll share with the group now that I'm on my third house is my wife and I, we paid off our mortgage last month. So the first time I've ever been debt-free. I don't owe anybody for a mortgage or any credit cards or any car loans. So a pretty cool feeling. But for those of us who have debt or looking to go in debt, that's not really a good feeling when you're looking at another property or looking at other places. But here in a minute, I'll show how to turn maybe what could seem like a threat into an opportunity for you. So when we look at it and we look at the impact of inflation over the last year, we see a big part of this is where it's impacted. So gasoline, airfare, natural gas, hotels and motels, and used cars and food have been a really big part of where the impact is. The only thing in this chart that's going down is the price of television. So if you need another flat screen TV, they're getting even cheaper. Gas prices have recently come down here in the last couple of weeks. I know it was painful to fill up at the pump when it was, $5 or $6. Airfare, if anybody's looked to buy an airfare ticket recently, those prices have gone up quite a bit. I had talked to some people recently who actually canceled a trip because of what the airfare prices are. With travel hockey, we spend most of our weekends in a hotel somewhere, either in Pittsburgh. This weekend we're Detroit. We got Kent State coming up. We're all over, and hotel prices, I can tell you, personally, have gone up quite a bit. When we look at it and we look at the investment component of it with equities and fixed income returns in years with high inflation, going back to 1927 through 2021, What you would notice here is the number one category at the top of the list, and what the average annual real returns has been, is small cap value stocks. Right? So a lot of people were saying, well, what about stocks in an inflationary environment? What we can see is within the category, the number one category is small cap value stocks, up 12.5%. The number two category is energy, which is, again, we've seen that kind of play out in the last year. The third category is large cap value stocks. So when you're thinking about the portfolios and you're thinking about how you're allocated, and if you're meeting with me or one of your advisors at the office, take into consideration when you're looking at your asset allocation, some of the strategies that we have that have historically been put in the right position to benefit during inflationary years. We have strategies that can kind of be able to put you in a place like that. So the threat in looking at inflation right now, I think the threat is the Federal Reserve crashes the economy. So go back a week ago when I was working on this presentation, the market was really in a big downturn, and it wasn't until these numbers came out this week that the market kind of got a little bit of a break from getting beat up, and that's because they had felt that the Federal Reserve was going to raise rates too much, and they wanted, the markets wanted the Fed to kind of slow down and take a breather, watch how things go. Hopefully the Fed will slow down, but the leaders today, I don't have a lot of faith in our leaders, so we'll see what they do. But that is the risk, is that they crash the economy by being too aggressive. So some of the positives on the flip end of the scale, the money market rate at Charles Schwab is now over 3%. So if you think about your lazy assets or your money that you have, if you're not getting over 3%, the money market account at Charles Schwab is currently 3%. We, at our models and our portfolios, especially the ones that are tactical, have some of our highest cash positions that we've had in the past, because we've been playing more defense right now, and it puts us in a spot to be able to be offensive really quickly when we want to do that. We're reallocating to make sure that all of you guys are taking advantage of the Schwab money market accounts with the funds that you have invested with us. Government I-bonds. I've been screaming from the rooftop for the last year about government I-bonds. How many people here own government I-bonds? Government I-bonds. So I'm going to ask again in February, and in February I want 100% of the people in the room to raise your hand, right? Government I-bonds. Now, I have not had an I-bond, I think, since Grandma put it in my Easter basket when I was 4 years old, right? It's been a long time. And that was a Series E bond. She bought it for $25, held on to it for 15 years, it's worth $50. That's a Series E bond that most of us are familiar with. There's another type of bond, it's called a government I-bond. I stands for the bond is inflation indexed to what the inflation factor is. This is issued directly from the United States Treasury Department. It's federally protected, the same as your bank money is. With an I-bond, the current interest rate is 9.62%. You could get 9.62%. So I don't have any student loans because I paid all mine off. I don't have any student loans for my son because he works for us and he saved money and we saved in his 529 plan. So I apparently am not going to get any free student loan money, which that's a whole other topic of debate. But if you want what I would call some free money from the government, put money in government I-bonds backed by the full faith and pledge of the United States government. You can get 9.62% interest with no market risk. So what's the fine print? What's the catch? You can only put in $10,000 per person. So a husband and wife could put in $20,000 per calendar year. So you can put in $20,000 as a couple, and then in January you can put another $20,000 in. The interest rate changes every 6 months. So at the end of this month, the interest rate will change again. Now, I don't think inflation has gone down. Inflation has probably stayed the same or gone up. But every 6 months, the inflation number will change and those rates will change. The minimum hold period is 1 year, and the maximum hold is 30 years. If you set up an account as an individual, please, please, please make sure that you name a beneficiary on your account. That way you can avoid probate. We do this all the time. I have government bonds for my family. My kids have them. And if you need help, let us know. We don't sell them like in the good old days. You could buy them from the bank. We don't have them in our office, but we can help you with them. What you don't want to do is you don't want to call the contact number on the government I-bond website. I called the other day, and after 90 minutes, they didn't answer the phone. So they're going to put 72,000 more IRS agents out there, but they don't want to answer the phone about government I-bonds. If you need help, let us know. We're happy to help set it up. If you go over to our YouTube channel, I recorded a 9-minute video on how to set up a U.S. government I-bond account. It literally step-by-step shows you how to get 9.62% interest and set up your account. If you want to open it up and get the rates, again, you have up until the end of this year, and then next year you can add some more. The last one that I talk about is index universal life insurance is another good way to put safety in place in a portfolio if you're concerned about downturn, yet be able to participate if and when the market comes back is another great strategy, which many of you ultimately have too. Strategy number 2 is talking about a further stock market crash. And if we look at the history of the bulls and bear markets going back to 1942, what you can see is in the blue area, you can see bull markets typically run for a long time. Bull markets are a great long experience. And in fact, I would say except for COVID, right, in that brief moment that we think we've really been in a pretty big bull run since 2008. Now, technically, what you can see over here is we did have, in COVID, back in March of 2020, the market sold off in a very fast amount of time. So those of you who were at our economic summit in February, you know what we had talked about when our discussion was on the roaring 20s. And I think at that time there was only one case of the virus in Wuhan, and how quickly that got out of control. But the Federal Reserve and ultimately the government decided to bail out everybody, and they bailed out the stock market. And they made an aggressive stance. So what they did is that was a very short-lived bull market. The things that I think that jump out in these charts is if you look at it, bull markets in the blue tend to be long-term patterns. Where crashes in the yellow, somewhat hard to see, they come fast and they come in a hurry. We're in a technical bull market right now, or a bear market right now, excuse me, because the market's down, again over 20%. So we're back in that bear market territory. But using what Gordy and those people talked about, what you want to do is you want to use that data to make a decision about where you're going to be, not because of where the market is right now, where the play is, but think about what history has taught us about how long bear markets last. So they will typically last on average about a year and a half, and we're well seasoned into that time frame. This chart is also a good chart that Joshua, my friend at First Trust, provided for us, and it's talking about the importance of staying the course. So if we look at this on the bottom, what it shows is it shows what the stock market has done intra-year. So going back to 1980, if I look at the left-hand side, in the year 1980, and I know because there's so many people here, it's hard to see, but the S&P 500 index at one point in the year was down 17%. But at the end of the year, the market closed in 1980 up 26%. Depends on what day of the week that you look at it, but right now the S&P 500 index is down roughly 20 to 25%, right? Again, depends on what day you look at it. So if we then draw a line, what we can say is going back to 1980, How many times has the S&P 500 index been down more than 25%? What we can see is there's one there, there's some there, there. So there's like 4 times going back to 1980 that the market's been down worse than it is now. What you'd also notice is what was the trend after the fact. The trend after the fact is when markets go down, the trend is over the next couple of years, the markets rally and recover. So just as the guys talked about, you know, if you feel like you're down and out a little bit because the market's down and out, don't give up and don't change where you're going. Use history as a guideline to talk about where things are going forward. The things that jump out at me, so what jumps out at me here is one is 08, right? So 08, the market was down 50%. And we're definitely not down 50%, but that's how painful it got. The other time that it jumps out to me was over here was 2000, 2001, 2002, you know, when the stock market had back-to-back negative years overall in the market. So I was asking Joshua, I'm like, well, what's your economist think about the outlook of the market? And, you know, we were sharing opinions, and he'll share his in a couple of minutes. What I would say is I personally believe that, you know, 70 to 80% of the worst is kind of behind us. As Gordy talked about, though, you know, you need to focus on what you can control. Even with me saying that, the market doesn't care what my opinion is. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. You know, there's still the Federal Reserve risk. There's uncertainty risk. If you're concerned about, I don't want to go down anymore, there's strategies that we have that can help you be in a position to help limit losses, like what we talked about in February, where we're using hedging, where we're using options, we're using strategies within your portfolio. You probably already have them, but you may not be familiar with them. Spend time with us, get educated about what you have. We can walk you through the process. We can talk about if you want to add a little bit more defense in there. The same would be true is, I was telling Carter, Carter's been a stock investor for quite a few years. So it's the conversations you hear at the top of the stairs, right? Dad talks about stocks, he listens, he's got a good stock portfolio. And just like Carter, I was telling you the other day, I'm like, we're getting back to an environment that there's so many incredible opportunities where you can get things at a 30, 40, even in some cases 50% discount. I'm like, that company is all cash. They got billions in cash, no debt, net income's positive, but they've been pummeled in the market just because people are selling without a thought process. So other people's mistakes create opportunities. We've seen it happen over and over and over again. So on the flip end of the scale, those of you who are opportunistic or want to be opportunistic, just know that, you know, we're happy to keep you in the game, and we're, you know, there and ready to make changes to the portfolios to take advantage of those opportunities if and when the time is right. So the threats are that we have is short-term, the markets could get worse. Pro rata withdrawals, depending on how you're taking your distributions out of your account, and emotional mistakes right now can be costly. The positives are our strategy called protected equities. There's some incredible rates that I haven't seen in 5 or 10 years with things like bonus fixed index annuities. And again, buying stocks at a discount, and last is utilizing circuit breakers. Number 3 is the risk of rising interest rates, and are you prepared for rising interest rates? The good news is here's some of the rates that are out there today. These are fixed index annuity rates as of 9/26/22, so pretty current. Like, I don't know what your bank account's paying or if you have a bank CD, but you know, most of the rates are pretty low. These are what the national rates that are out there. Myself and all of our team, we're independent. We can help shop whether it's a bank CD or whether it's an insurance company who offers some of the highest rates with, you know, top-rated insurance companies. But it's been a while since I've seen, you know, rates in that 3.6 to 4.8 range. So if you're below the 3.6 or 4.8, there is some good opportunities out there as you have CDs mature. Pay careful attention, or if you have, again, some lazy assets you want to put them to work. That's the Schwab money market. So anybody who wants that ticker, just see us. We'll get you that information. As of 9/26, it was 2.62. Their money market right now is over 3%. So the threats that we have is mortgage rates are going up. As of the time I was publishing this, there was 6.25. I think mortgage rates are now closer to the 6.7% range. The average home price has increased by $800 for people that are looking to buy a house. That's up 80% from 3 years ago. The positives are, again, money market rates and fixed accounts. With healthcare costs, in our fourth of our fifth topic, I was going to invite Scott to come up and share a couple of thoughts with us on healthcare costs. Then we can talk a little bit about things like the affordable healthcare, Medicare,